The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act.
For the first time in Canadian history, Justin Trudeau enabled the Emergency Act, formerly known as the War Measures Act, giving him complete power to arrest protesters, imprison truckers, and freeze the bank accounts of anyone who is supporting the freedom movement. But how did we get here? How did Canada, your friendly neighbor of the North, become the epicenter of a worldwide rally?
It's day 8, the second Saturday that people have come to Parliament to make one demand: a total end to COVID mandates and restrictions across the country.
All right, Canada's Freedom Convoy is still going strong tonight. It's spreading all over the world, Europe, New Zealand, here in the U.S., building support, gaining momentum.
The small fringe minority holding unacceptable views.
We are turning up the heat in every way we possibly can within our operations and enforcement.
What was initially described as a peaceful protest has now turned into a siege of our downtown area.
This movement has snowballed from being a convoy driven by truckers to now a global rally of people fighting for freedom.
Just a few blocks away, counter-protesters at City Hall were met by a small group of convoy supporters, police intervening to keep them apart.
Vice News shared this was a white supremacist movement where people vandalized statues, publicly defecated, and displayed swastikas. While social media shared this was a peaceful protest.
I want everyone to know that I want to, first of all, thank Justin Trudeau, because he tried to separate black people from white people. He tried to separate the masked from the unmasked. He tried to separate the vaccinated from the unvaccinated. And I'm going to tell you what you did, Justin Trudeau. You brought everybody together. This country has never seen so much unity.
And being a Canadian citizen, my mind began to bounce around. Was a massive white supremacist movement breaking out? Or was this actually a protest for freedom? And is protesting for freedom really the solution? Or do we all need to just get vaccinated to stop all of these lockdowns? So this is what propelled me and a group of friends to pack up our bags and drive down to Ottawa, Canada's capital city, and see what the is going on in our country. Winter boots, 3 layers of pants, minus 30 jackets, and I think we'll still be cold.
It's very dedicated.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or holding unacceptable views.
So we've been here for like probably 30 minutes already, and it is like such a huge collection of people just smiling and playing music. Everyone seems so freaking happy. All I see is the Canadian flag. Zero discrimination. It's just smiles all around. I feel like this is gonna be like my ringtone for the next few weeks. While attending, I soon realized that the legacy media that I was consuming wasn't lying. It was simply selectively sharing the truth. There was no Confederate flags, signs of Nazis, or disrespect to monuments. People were friendly, giving, and kind to one another. This felt like more of a render of a northern utopia than a freaking protest. I can easily say that this is the largest representation of love and connection I have ever experienced in my entire life. No concert, festival, or hippy-dippy celebration even comes close to the radiating love I experienced February 5th. People danced and cheered, wore a large smile as much as they wore their 5 layers of clothing in minus 30 degrees. But maybe I missed out on all this negativity that the media was sharing.
The ear-piercing protests snarling streets with big rigs. Dubbed the Freedom Convoy, the movement is being called an insurrection by some, paralyzing the Canadian capital.
I mean, that could be true, but to say this event was a fringe minority with unacceptable views who were racist. So we are currently in a little shawarma shop here with a group of people. Every single like restaurant and establishment is closed. This like sweet shawarma shop is like opened its doors. People have been coming in and it's been amazing. All I've seen is beauty. We literally just had a gentleman here pray for us inside a shawarma shop.
I think this is the coolest thing that I've ever witnessed.
So is this protest about truckers or mandates, masks or lockdowns, or is this just all a big political game? Well, the Freedom Rally has quickly grown into a loud discussion about the politics of Canada.
Patriotic, peace-loving Canadians who are called misogynist and racist by the Prime Minister.
While the rest of the world seems to be going back into motion, Canada feels very behind.
We can look 300 feet across the border and see freedom, and here we are. This is what our country looks like.
Our Prime Minister repeatedly says that we're 90% vaccinated, and yet our restrictions say otherwise. While people protest in our nation's capital, members of parliament are debating on the leadership of this very situation. But to say this is all about lockdowns is really only the icing on the cake.
This is a policy that now goes against the World Health Organization's recommendation, and for which no epidemiological studies and projections have been provided.
Supporters of the movement have expressed that the government's approach to motivate people to get vaccinated has come from division and to wedge Canadians from one another. And it's worked. Those who have been unvaccinated have been demonized in our media, labeled as anti-science, racist, and conspiracy theorists. And honestly, if you don't believe me, you can just ask the leader of our country.
So yes, the concerns expressed by a few people gathered in Ottawa right now are not new, not surprising, are heard, but are a continuation of what we've unfortunately seen in conspiracy theorists about microchips, about God knows what else that go with the tinfoil hats.
Even a member of the Liberal government, the people on Trudeau's side, have shared that they disagree with our Prime Minister's angle. And more leaders at this point are coming out and expressing this. Why doesn't Justin just speak to the truckers? Why doesn't he listen to his people? This would be probably a really good angle for him as a politician. Many have asked him, and he hasn't really given a clear answer other than to just put more walls up.
Justin Trudeau, I thought he was kind of a cool guy. Then I started to read what he said. This is a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about people who are not vaccinated. He said they don't believe in science. They're often misogynistic, often racist. No, they're not.
That was not smart of him at all.
Right. He said, but they take up space. And with that, we have to make a choice in terms of a leader as a country. Do we tolerate these people? It's like, tolerate them. Now you do sound like Hitler.
Over the last few days, the Canadian government has stepped in, bringing in a large police force to stop the truckers and the protesters. So they've stopped their fuel, threatened more force, and continually ignored the request of the protesters. Even the GoFundMe account that raised over $8 million for the truckers has now been frozen. The police force is making this into a relatively scary situation. Now, I get it. Some locals of the Ottawa community are definitely pissed, and I would be too. Loud honking, protests evolving into raves on your street corner could be a recipe for insanity, and there's no way around how shitty this must be. Even businesses are losing business because they need to be closed during all of this, which I don't fully understand because
we literally just had a gentleman here pray for us.
But I understand that amount of people can be overwhelming for a business, and it's not safe or sustainable to have that flood or influx of humans in a space at one time. It's also annoying as hell.
You're visibly shaking, your body is shaking, you are crying. Well, why is that?
Well, it's been a week of constant honking, constant hate in social media, walking just down the street, it's hate, people are being harassed for wearing masks.
But does all this noise go without being heard? I mean, the locals are experiencing it, but what about the people of power? A lot has happened over the last few days, and I'm sure more will unfold by the time you're finished watching this video.
In 2 days, we're going to be going to 100% in restaurants. On March the 1st, we're just going to open things up.
Provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan have begun to drop their vaccine mandates. The Canadian Chief Public Health Officer calls out for normalcy. And most importantly, those who have felt suppressed, judged, and silenced now have a voice. Now I know what you're asking. What about COVID? The elephant in the room, the thing that has put us into lockdowns, overflowed hospitals, and killed millions of people. What do the protesters think about that? Well, people who are protesting, the truckers and anti-vaxxers, the freedom fighters and politicians, all are not pro-COVID. We are also not wanting this virus to get any worse. But more and more, the scientists and leaders in the public health space are suggesting that we take a new approach on this virus, that we get back to normalcy, that we stop segregating each other if you got the jab or not. When we stood in Ottawa, we weren't wishing for sickness or disregarding science. We also weren't spitting in the faces of doctors or celebrating Nazis. We were gathering in packs of hundreds of thousands because we wanted to be heard by our government that is continuing to try and divide and wedge us.
And regardless of how you stand on all of this, it's safe to say that this is a huge part of Canadian history and global history happening as we speak. Even, I'm sure, as this video has been published, more things have happened. And one of the struggles that I've had throughout all of this is, who can I trust? What do I watch in order to feel comfortable about this? And I hope this video is able to illustrate both sides of this. I understand where both people stand. Now, obviously, I lean a little bit more in one direction, which I'll let you make that assumption from this video. But there are both sides to this. I think we have this illustration in our heads that there are heroes and villains, good guys and bad guys, this heroic movie idea that people have to be evil in order for there to be someone to solve said problem, that anti-vaxxers have to be these people who are racists and against science and spit in the faces of doctors and nurses and the healthcare workers. But maybe they don't. Maybe there isn't good and bad, and perhaps there's just opinions and traumas and people operating with those things. And perhaps maybe we just need to listen to each other. And perhaps maybe we just need to understand each other. Perhaps we need to make decisions from listening as opposed to what we think we've already heard. And I hope you can understand that from this video. If you are struggling to respecting the things that I've said in this video, or maybe even just struggling to grasp on to what news to believe, I recommend taking a look at the account Freedom Convoy 2022. They've been the account that I've been following extensively throughout all of this because it felt like they were sharing a lot more honest opinions of what's actually happening at these protests, and that's coming from my own personal experience of attending it. If you feel like that's maybe leaning to one side a little bit too much, then take a look at another perspective of news. I can completely share that this has been definitely framed through a small pinhole when it comes to certain news outlets, and a good illustration of that would be watching a video from, let's say, NBC regarding this, and then watching something from someone like Fox News and showing how completely different on the ends of the spectrum this event really is illustrated by those different news networks. I incorporated both news networks on this video because I wanted you to see both views, but overall, this video is not made for you to distrust the media or anything. I just want you to understand what's happening here in Canada and sharing it from the perspective of a Canadian who has attended this event and who has been affected directly by everything that's been argued amongst those in Ottawa at this current moment. So thank you again for watching. If you guys want more content like this, let me know in the comment section below. And if you disagreed with the stuff that I said in this video, that's great. If you don't like what I said, comment down below. I want this to be an open conversation. Please don't argue about stuff. And if you're angry about things, I don't know, maybe hold that back and share that with your therapist. But if you have legitimate concerns about how things are being set up, or maybe actually good ideas for solutions, I'm just stoked to hear what you have to say. Write that in the comments. I absolutely love you guys so much. I really appreciate you watching this far into the video. And for all of you who are like, what's wrong with you, Zach? I'm just getting over having COVID. Yes, I've had it for the past 3 days. I'm feeling tremendously better now. Fatigue is waving in and out like a freaking roller coaster, and now it's hitting hard yet again. So I'm going to go get some sleep, but I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching this, and you just got a little bit more informed of what the hell's happening in the world. So good on you. I love you. Have a great day.